which lakes you went into from Fort Washakie into the Wind Rivers.
Huh? Oh, no, I didn't. No, you're good. Sorry, I thought you said you started the stream. I'm like, yeah.
I've been to here. It's called Nicholson Park.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go in. This is the drainage that we went in there.
All of those lakes in there is the ones you go to.
Yeah.
You ready, Connor?
You're pretty much.
Yeah.
You can get.
We will call the September Planning Commission meeting to order. We will start with the opening remarks and then a pledge by myself today. I'm going to give my opening remarks in the form of a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to gather together in this wonderful country, in this county, in this country, and the freedoms that we have and the ability we have to work together as citizens to decide how we want to grow and become a better community. Bless us that we'll be guided in our decisions and that keep a civil mind about us as we do these things. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. You all stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda, Connor? Okay. Everyone have a chance to read the minutes from last month? Look at the agenda. I would accept a motion to approve those.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes from August.
Second it.
I don't remember the date.
Yep, I think it was the first.
August 1st.
Okay. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Did you have the agenda in that one too, or just the minutes?
Agenda 2
Okay, perfect.
was on there.
Okay. Okay, no consent items, and we are right on time for our public hearing at 5:35, so. Oh, one item. Well, I was just trying to keep on time. If we can do that one in 1 minute.
I think we can.
Okay.
If Spencer's okay with all of the conditions. This is just a follow-up to a subdivision amendment that you had recommended denial to council for, because it didn't have the frontage. It was that unique situation where the private road and the public road paralleled each other. So council did advise staff to move forward with drafting a resolution to adopt that portion of the private road, 1590 West. But there was no vacation of the existing private road, so there will be both of them there still, and it should be probably in the future designated as just 1600 West. But they, County Council approved that on August 27th through Resolution 2024-18. So that's been taken care of, so we just redrafted the staff report, included your typical conditions with the subdivision, and we're good with the approval with those conditions in place.
Okay, any questions from commissioners on that? I think last time we were good with it, other than that.
Yeah. No question.
No question. So we just need to
Motion.
adopt.
Make a motion to approve it.
Is it adopt?
No.
Just motion?
Yeah, it came back here as an administrative action after the legislative action of adopting the road. So it came back to your approval authority and not the county council.
Approval of the
The
subdivision
approval,
amendment.
okay.
Yeah.
So I would make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Now we'll move. Give us the presentation first, Connor.
Yeah.
We need to recognize a new attorney. Yeah.
Oh, you do.
My name's Eric Davis. I'm just filling in for Andrew Crane.
Gonna say, he still had the same name there. Just a different face. Thanks, Brady.
All right, so the Honey rezone, so it's a request to rezone 16.67 acres from the resort recreation zone to the FR 40 zone. The maximum number of potential lots is 1. The parcel is legal. The quick caveat to the next section is that the resort recreation zone has more use types, but it is also more restrictive in its own way. You need a minimum of 2,000 acres to develop, and you also need to do a master plan, development agreement, and development plan. So it's a little bit more intensive that way. So in general, though, the FR40 zone is more restrictive than the resort recreation zone. So uses that are no longer permitted include single-family dwelling, foster home, accessory apartment, home-based business, multifamily dwelling, residential living facilities, commercial business, home-based kennel, general vehicle repair, medical services, facilities, human care services, a resort, transient lodging, a restaurant, mobile food truck, religious meeting house, farm stand, or a boarding facility. All the surrounding parcels are used for forestry and recreation, and the nearest parcel in the FR40 zone is directly to the east of it, so it's that parcel right there. In terms of the general plan, the parcel is not located in any future annexation areas. Code does not specify where forest recreation zone should go, but it gives the general guidelines of to permit the proper use of the forest areas of Cache County for grazing, forestry, mining, recreation, and other activities to the extent compatible with the protection of the natural and scenic resources of the forest for the benefit of present and future generations. The Cache County Future Land Use Map identifies this area as mountain, rural, and conservation. And the general plan states location, the majority of privately owned mountain and foothill areas. Example areas include the FR40 zone that is not public land. The purpose and character is forestry, recreation, and multiple resource uses on private lands. Forestry and recreation land uses are expected to continue. Maintaining the environmental quality of steep slopes, canyons, and forests with minimal residential development conserves watershed resources and improves resiliency from wildfire, geological, and flood hazards. Preferred land uses include forestry, agriculture, conservation easements, and conserved public lands, watershed protection, hazard mitigation, outdoor recreation, and tourism. Secondary land uses include seasonal residential housing at 1 unit per 40 acres, clustered subdivision developments, resorts, recreation businesses, and public institutions. Discouraged uses include residential development at a density greater than 1 unit per 40 acres, industrial, commercial office, commercial retail, and heavy industrial. It's not located in the urban expansion overlay. Access, so in the FR40 zone, you need a minimum frontage of 150 feet. The parcel currently does not have frontage along a county road, and there are no county roads in the immediate vicinity. The parcel is accessed by taking Powder Mountain Road from the Weber County side and then using private mountain roads. Service provisions, the Cache County Fire District had no comments in regards to this application, and the applicant will have to work with waste management for solid waste disposal. Notices were mailed, posted in 3 public locations, and posted to the Utah Public Notice website on August 23rd. And staff has not made a recommendation for approval or denial, but we can help you draft a letter to County Council.
Mr. Chairman, just one question before we
Open it up.
open the deal. You know when this, or can you tell us when the property changed hands last?
I know it's been a while. I'd say more than a decade at least.
That was gonna be my follow-up question on that, is how did this end up in resort recreation?
It was part of Powder Mountain.
Okay,
Yeah, then
and so it's been sold off from that, okay.
The parcel was sold originally from Powder Mountain?
Yeah, if I remember right, Powder Mountain split off a bunch of parcels and sold them off.
And the current owner's had it for 10 years or longer?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay.
It's been.
The owner is here and might be able to answer some of those questions.
Okay, any other questions for Connor? I would accept a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to?
Or do you want the owner first? So we
Or the owner, if
get
they
the
want to come up? Questions? Where is the owner? Oh. You want to come up and maybe answer a couple questions from the commissioners?
Sure.
You just come up here and just state your name if you would, and. You just
Okay,
come up to the microphone, then it picks it up on the recording, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so I guess one of the questions was how long,
It's been a long time. I can't tell you exactly how long, but
you've had it quite a while.
yeah.
Not that we're trying to figure out what you're doing, but at the same time, if you're willing to share with us the fact that due to not having the 150 feet of frontage, you'd still be restricted with the FR 40 zone. Does that restrict or create further problems for you, or do you care?
Restricted in what regard?
So you
So-
get 150 feet of road to develop.
To develop a cabin, a small cabin? But we talked, you guys,
I know there is some old mapping that indicates there may be an old county roadway on the property. I don't know if that's ever been settled though at this point.
yeah, that's a forestry road. See that road that goes to the corner? That's been there for probably 50, 60 years or longer, documented on the US Geological Survey. That's a road right there. It's a historic road. It may not be recognized by the county, but it is by the US GS. Yeah,
So just to clarify, that would be a challenge in whatever zone you're in, correct?
Correct.
That'd be a requirement, I would say.
yeah, who's the guy in charge of the roads?
Matt?
Yeah, I talked to him, he had no problem with it. I mean, it's kind of at my own risk if there's a problem, but that's, it's on the USGS maps, so. I just don't want to be bullied, so. It doesn't seem like, as a property owner, I should have the right to do a cabin in Cache County. And there is a road, existing road. So, as far as I'm concerned, I can go build a bunker there or a place up in the mountains if I want, right? Do you guys agree?
You'd have to go through the proper permitting to build something on there, but as long as you've got the zoning clearances, the permitting, then you could build something on there, according to county code. And I think you could do that, I don't know what you can build on the current zoning.
So the current zoning, the
You couldn't-
real
you can't have a
issue
residential
is
temporary.
you can do that, but it has to be attached to a larger development.
So that's the benefit of
Resort
rezoning.
recreation, which is why as staff, we met with the applicant, we went through the resort recreation code. There's a lot of stipulations they have to meet before you can build anything. And so the FR 40, though more restrictive in use, is not as restrictive for a cabin. Yeah.
Which looks like this. That's what this makes more sense for anyways, to be in the other one, recreation forest.
And you're aware it's a limited occupancy, right?
Yeah, Stevens told me all about it.
Any other questions? Thanks, George.
Thanks.
Anyone else from the public, come up and state your name and.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Spencer Young. I am an attorney from Strong and Haney. I represent Powder Mountain, and we just wanted to make our position known. We really don't have any objection to the rezoning change, but as the Commissioner and the staff have noted, access may be an issue, and so to the extent that the Commission believes that access may be over my client's land, and you'll see SMHG Land Co. LLC as one of my client's entities, and my understanding is my client is also under contract to purchase other parcel belonging to Monument Holdings LLC. And so to the extent that the commission is relying on the notion that there may be access to the parcel over my client's land, my client would take the position that does not believe so. Certainly not in the wintertime where my client prohibits access via a motorized vehicle of any kind because of the danger it prohibits or poses for skiers. And so my client, like I said, we're not here to infringe on anybody's property rights or anything like that, but we did note in the staff report that access might be an issue, and we just wanted to make our position known on that. So, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, commissioners, what would you like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question.
Yep.
I guess, just as a citizen or a member of this committee, either way, it's a little concerning to me if one party's being told that he possibly has frontage, but yet we're acknowledging in here that he does not have frontage. I don't understand where that clarification is crossing.
I think what the staff has said in that is that it's not county, it's not a county utility, right? It's not a county road frontage. And so, which there are, you know, hundreds of parcels, I'm sure, that fall into this,
Are you looking at the
this same
recommendation of
category.
denial? It clearly says the parcel currently does not have any frontage along a public or private road. Does it, or does it not?
Does say private. Okay.
So that's up to him to work that out with the.
Yeah,
the
I mean, it definitely
private
could be worked
property
out,
owners,
but,
which,
yeah.
There's not a
which
requirement,
is-
right? To approve the rezone.
No.
You
No,
don't,
it's
you
not
don't have
required.
that to rezone it.
No.
He would just have to work
No.
that
So
out
we-
before he were able to get a permit to build on there.
Yeah.
And maybe that should be clarified to say that access is, or does it even matter in a rezone?
It doesn't matter,
At this
yeah.
level,
Rezone it don't.
at this,
We're just
doesn't
doing
matter.
rezone
We
today.
have to worry about that. That's the next step for him. But yeah, good to.
But it's
I had
still,
that
it's
question too.
confusing
Yeah.
if you're making the rezone to go to the next step, but there's,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, it should be clear either way, I think.
Because in the approval ones, then it doesn't state anything about that, so.
Well, where it's just the rezone today, we ready?
Yeah, unless there's other questions from commissioners.
No, I mean, this is a down zone technically, and it's, you know, makes it better from a complexity standpoint, so.
Well,
Okay.
Go for it now, Jay.
Okay, well, with that, I would make motion that we select option 2, recommend approval to change the zoning to Forest and Recreation 40.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We will move on to Deep Canyon.
Okay.
Did we skip one?
No, we did that real quick before the public hearing.
Oh, that was,
We're flying.
don't ruin it.
Deep Canyon, so the Deep Canyon Trailhead Parking and Trails Project, CUP. It's a request to operate a recreational facility, use type 4100 on 400 acres in the FR 40 zone. It includes a new trailhead parking lot, approval of the existing trail known as Wayne's Loop, and future proposed trails. The land use context, so the parcel is owned by Mendon City, but it's in the unincorporated areas of the county, so that's why they're here. The parcel is legal as it is in the same size and configuration as it was on August 8, 2006. The primary uses to the north and east are agriculture, and to the south and west is forest recreation. In terms of phasing, there will be 2 phases. Phase 1 would include the trailhead parking lot and approval of the existing Wayne's Loop Trail. And then phase 2 would include the construction of additional loop trails that would tie into Wayne's Loop. Construction, phase 1 would be the construction of a trailhead and approval of Wayne's Loop. That was created without approval. It includes a parking area, so the parking area covers 1.54 acres. It provides 3 American with Disabilities Act parking stalls, 6 stalls for horse trailer parking, and 29 standard parking spots. The ADA and standard parking stalls will be asphalted, but the horse parking areas and potential overflow areas will probably just have gravel. It will be landscaped, and it will have picnic tables and benches. There will also be a vault toilet. So condition 2 says it needs to meet building code 1808.7.1. Basically what that is, it's a construction requirement that essentially says you need to be so far of a distance back from a steep slope area, which is in that area. If you look at the site plan, if it's greater than 33%, which the area it is in, so that's why I would need that. Signage, there'll be pretty minimal signage, just for parking, and then ADA parking, directional signs, and a kiosk at the trailhead. It will need to comply with Cache County Code 17.23. Operation, the trailhead parking and trails will be open to the public. However, it will be restricted to hikers, mountain bikers, equestrians, cross-country skiers, etc. Motor vehicles will not be allowed on the trail, or any of the trails. Any events that occur using the trailhead will need to obtain a special event permit. Trails are intended to be used from dawn to dusk, but no lighting is proposed, and camping or backpacking is restricted to Forest Service land. There will also be no fire pits. The trails themselves will be non-paved and either be dirt or gravel, and will be 3 to 6 feet wide. There will be no employees. Basically, the only employee will just show up and clean that vault toilet, and that's pretty much it. The hours of operation, signs will be posted saying that the parking lot hours are from dawn to dusk, but the lot itself won't be physically closed. So there is a potential for hikers or backpackers to show up between dusk and dawn. Equipment, there will be no equipment in regular upkeep of the site. Maintenance, for the vault toilet will be pumped by a contractor provided by Mendon City. Mendon City will also provide regular site maintenance, including inspections, repairs, and cleaning of the vault toilet. And winter maintenance and snow removal will not be provided by Cache County. So just going through some definitions. 4100 recreational facility is defined as a place, either indoor or outdoor, designed and equipped for the conduct of sports and leisure time activities, that is operated as a business and or open to the general public. A recreational facility is operated for a period of greater than 30 days per year and may also include incidental transient lodging, accommodations for up to 15 rooms. For the purposes of the recreational facility only, room is defined as a self-contained area within a structure that has a maximum of 2 sleeping areas, 1 bathroom, and no provision for cooking. A room provides sleeping accommodations for the general public utilizing the associated recreational facility. All rooms associated with a recreational facility must be contained within a single structure, and access to rooms must be primarily from interior lobbies or halls. A central kitchen and dining room catering to guests and the general public can be provided within the same structure. Recreational facility does not include use type 4110 campground. Keep in mind though that there are no transient lodging involved in the CUP. So this is permitted as use type in the Forest Service Forest Recreation Zone as long as it has a CUP. And the intent, the Trails Project CUP letter of intent are only proposed to occur on the subject parcel, and we've determined won't cause unreasonable risk to the safety or persons of property, and it does not unreasonably interfere with the lawful use of surrounding properties. In fact, the property will significantly benefit the local community by promoting outdoor activities and providing a safe parking area for users of the trailhead. Just some background on that last sentence. Essentially, this trail was unpermitted for a while, and there were issues with parking where people would park up and down the road, which kind of created unsafe conditions. That's kind of how this CUP came to be. Adequate service provision. So it's considered a seasonal or recreational road. Seasonal recreation roads are primarily found in rural areas and serve lands that are subject to specialized uses, including parking lots, tourist attractions, cabins, forest access, and recreational facilities, such as campsites, boat launch ramps, and trailheads. These routes are typically open to the general public and are more more likely than other functional classes of roads to be used by drivers who are unfamiliar to them. In many cases, these roads are used only seasonally. They accommodate a wide range of speeds, and they may be relatively long. Minimum standards for a seasonal recreational road include a 33-foot right-of-way, two 10-foot wide gravel travel lanes with no paved or gravel shoulders, 14-inch depth of granular barrow, and a 6-inch depth of untreated base course, and 3 inches of, I cannot pronounce that, bituminous surface course. Minor local roads serve almost exclusively to provide access for properties adjacent to the road. Minor local roads generally serve residential or other non-commercial land uses. Many minor local roads are cul-de-sacs or loops, roads with no through continuity. The length of minor local roads is typically short because the sole function of local roads is to provide local access. Such roads are used predominantly by drivers who are familiar with them. Minimum standards for a minor local road includes a 66-foot right-of-way, two 10-foot wide paved travel lanes with 4-foot wide gravel shoulders, 14 inches depth of granular barrow, and a 6-inch depth of untreated base course, and then 3 inches of asphalt on top of that. Where land abutting an existing substandard street or road is subdivided or developed, the developer shall dedicate any additional rights of way and improve the adjacent roadway to conform to the county standard. Access to the project will occur along 1000 South. The basic analysis of 1000 South is as follows. An existing county facility that is classified as a minor local road from Mendon city limits to where the pavement ends, then the road is unimproved. From there, it is then considered a seasonal recreational road to its end of the proposed development. The road currently provides access to recreational and agricultural lands. It's currently only maintained in the summer. It's classified as a seasonal recreational road and will need to meet the road standard required for the proposed development. It's currently 14 feet wide, has no right-of-way, has no paved or gravel shoulder, has no clear zone, and is unpaved. It's considered substandard as the travel lanes, right-of-way, clear zone material, and the structural condition of the road is considered in poor condition. The road is currently being improved as part of a separate county road department project that will improve the road up to a full-width gravel road with shoulder and clear zone improvements. Grant funding includes the cost for a private construction company to pave the county road once the county road department completes their project. The asphalt finish will meet the county road classification material required for the proposed development. As applicable, outside the current county road department project on 1000 South, complete and detailed construction plans and drawings of all improvements must be submitted to the Cache County Public Works Department for review and approval prior to the issuance of permits. As applicable, the applicant will need to secure easements across all privately owned parcels and provide proof of easements to the Development Services Department. It is not the intention of the proposed recreational facility to have any part of the trailhead parking or trails located on or through private property. An encroachment permit will need to be obtained prior to any work occurring in Cache County's right-of-way. The applicant has provided a traffic impact study prepared by a licensed professional. It just needs to be reviewed by the county engineer. And the applicant must dedicate any necessary right-of-way along 1000 South. So for parking under use type index code 4000, there is a parking analysis requirement to determine the minimum number of parking spots needed for each use. The applicant has provided a traffic impact study, and the traffic impact study recommended a total of 45 parking stalls for the project. As proposed, the parking area includes 38 total parking stalls, including 3 ADA stalls and 6 for horse trailer parking. It also does need to be reviewed and approved by the county engineer. Development standards in the FR 40 zone, the front setback is a minimum of 50 feet from the property line or right of way. Cache County Code states that any required parking shall not be permitted in any required setback area. The applicant has submitted a variance request, and a variance meeting was held yesterday. I'm not sure about what the result of that was, but it was granted. So
What was this variance for, sorry?
so essentially, if the building, one second, I can actually pull up the site. And
Bathrooms maybe on, were too close.
The parking stalls themselves.
So if you look, let me zoom in on that. essentially the property line is right there. And so essentially what would happen is you have 50 feet of front setback on the FR40 zone. And so basically just because of that steep slope that's right there, they wouldn't be able to build outside of that setback. So that's why that variance was requested and the meeting was held and approved.
That dashed line on the south end, that's the 50-foot setback. Down one more up, right there.
And it's from the right of way.
Without the variance, they couldn't build inside that.
Yeah, parking stalls or any structure would not be allowed.
Fire control, the Cache County Fire District has reviewed the application and determined that the following conditions must be met prior to recording the permit. Improvement plans for the road, turnaround, and parking lot will need to meet fire code for emergency access. These plans have to be submitted to the Cache County Fire District for review and approval. The parking lot is located in the Wildland Urban Interface. There will need to be a 30-foot defensible space around the parking lot and turnaround. So all grass and weeds will need to be cleared and it'll have to go down to mineral soil. Solid waste disposal, the applicant states that there will be a garbage can located inside of the vault toilet, but no others will be provided on the site. And septic, the applicant states in their LOI that a vault toilet will be provided on site. Regular maintenance, pumping, cleaning, and inspections will be provided by the property owner, Mendon City. So known or reasonably anticipated detrimental effects are as follows. Stormwater site development. The applicant must submit a stormwater report prepared by a licensed engineer detailing how the proposed development will manage rainfall on site and prevent this off-site discharge of the precipitation from all rainfall events less than or equal to the 80th percentile rainfall event or pre-development hydrological condition, whichever is less. Any required stormwater infrastructure and easements must be shown on the revised site plan and constructed prior to recording the permit. The applicant will need to provide a site improvement plan prepared by a licensed professional. These plans shall include, but not limited to, site plan, site grading, site drainage, and site details. The Vegetation Management Department has identified this parcel as having issues with Dyer's Woad. Prior to recording the permit, they need to submit a noxious weed and revegetation plan. The GIS division has identified that there are two potential section corners, number 166 and 1513 near this project. There are some stipulations, depends on how close they are to development. Number 166 appears to be outside of that 30-foot distance. However, if 1000 South is being improved to the trailhead, corner 1513 will be impacted. So the applicant has to work with Public Works to work around that. There are sensitive areas on the property, so geologic hazards, steep slopes, moderate slopes, canals, those are on there, but they don't really impact the development. So it's just kind of referenced on there, but there's not necessarily any conditions tied to it. In terms of canal, there is a canal that runs along the east side of the property. If they impact or build anywhere near that, they'll have to work with the canal company. Wildfire hazard area, it isn't a wildfire hazard area, so they have to coordinate with Cache County Fire District on that, and same thing with the Wildland Urban Interface. They'll just have to coordinate with Cache County Fire District. The public notice was posted to the Utah Public Notice website on August 23rd. They're also posted in 3 public areas, and notices were mailed to all property owners within 300 feet on the 23rd as well. The summary of conditions. The applicant and operators must abide by the information as provided in the application and the information as identified in the staff report, as well as any required revisions needed to the letter of intent and plans. Any expansion or modification of the proposed use must obtain the approval of the Land Use Authority. Prior to zoning clearance approval, the location of the vault toilet may need to be relocated. Any proposed signage must comply with Chapter 17.23 of the County Code. The operation of the proposed recreational facility must be consistent with the LOI. Maintenance of the trailhead parking area, vault toilet, trash disposal, and Wayne's Loop are the responsibility of the property owner, so Mendon City. Prior to the construction and after the Cache County Public Works Department has completed their base improvements to 1000 South, the applicant is responsible for paving that road. Prior to the issuance of a zoning clearance, the applicant needs to secure any and all easements, An encroachment permit is required. The traffic impact study must be reviewed and approved by the county Public Works Department. They need to dedicate any necessary right of way. The variance request of that condition has been completed. The fire district, prior to the issuance of the zoning clearance, the fire district must review and approve the site plan, access, and turnarounds. The trailhead parking area is located within wildland urban interface, so they have to coordinate with the Cache Fire District as well. They have to meet all the requirements of that stormwater issue, so basically, yeah. Prior to recording the permit, the site plan must be revised to show the location of any required stormwater infrastructure and easements identified in the stormwater report, and any stormwater infrastructure identified in the approved stormwater report must be constructed. Noxious weed and revegetation plan must be submitted. We'll have to work with Public Works in regards to those section corners and any impacts proposed to, proposed development impacts to the canal, have to work with the canal company. But it has been reviewed and staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, any questions for Connor?
Are we gonna allow any public comment on this?
You should.
Yeah, we'll ask, yeah.
I have a number of questions. So we're gonna have one garbage can in the, and we've got 38 parking spots, and seems very inadequate for the amount of impact that we're gonna put on an area like this. I mean, people are going hiking and all of that, and you've got a restroom facility there. It seems pretty limited. Will we be developing the trails on any steep slopes?
I don't believe so. No. Maybe the senator's here. You can talk to it a little bit more.
I would like to dive into that a little bit more because, you know,
See how much different this is than the Murray on the other side of Rattlesnake.
Yeah,
where the wells goes. I go up there quite a lot, and that doesn't get that much use. It's like they quickly go up in that little loop and they're gone.
Mm-hmm. I'm just, you know, I mean, we're pretty consistent on steep slopes, no development on steep slopes, and we've had the challenges over developing roads across steep slopes.
Whisper Ridge.
And Whisper Ridge back, we had
And
some.
this is kind of reminded me of Whisper Ridge, because my question was gonna be, go ahead with yours and then.
Yeah, please take that one, because that popped into my head as well. And you answered the question, I had questions on road condition, because that road is definitely, not in a condition for this amount of impact that we're going to put on it. The parking studies, we had 45 spots parking spots identified in the parking study, but we're proposing 38. Is there a reason why we went from what the parking study recommended?
There is a consultant that the county is working with on this project who'd probably be able to offer a lot more detail on reasonings behind the design, so he is here to answer questions as well.
Okay. All right.
My name is Paul Peterson with WCG Engineering. And to answer your question with the amount of parking stalls, we have increased that. We'll be adding a couple more, some of the side parking. If you look at the south side of the site plan, it's not really. Are you running the computer? Sorry. Could you zoom up just
down a little bit further? Or?
Yeah, go to the south a little bit.
Easier just to open up the actual plan, which is a few pages down.
So while he's looking that up, just to answer your question, we'll be adding some parking along the edges, kind of an overflow parking. We anticipate it's not going to be at full capacity all the time, so that's just for some overflow parking on, Memorial Day.
I've seen this area, with cars up and down the sides of the road on a big weekend, and I wonder about the adequacy of that. You're the engineer and you've done the parking study, but I wonder about how, if that's adequate for what we're going to see if we, you know, open an improved trail in this area.
Yeah, we did some traffic counts at like trail up in Green Canyon, trailhead in Wellsville. And yeah, did some traffic studies based on the usage there to come up with the recommended parking stalls, so. And that's all detailed in the traffic study, how we came up with that.
I realize you guys got a variance for the setback requirement, but, you know, the lot that you're putting this on is significantly larger than kind of what's portrayed here. And you could simply shift the whole parking lot about 100 feet to the east and be out of that setback zone. So I'm wondering why that wasn't considered, why it's shoved all the way to the west like it is.
Yeah. So that, part of the reasoning behind that was to really get the parking area. So the variance was to allow parking within that 50-foot setback. The building will still be beyond the 50-foot setback, I guess the building, but the vault toilet will be outside of that 50-foot setback. So really is to allow some of that parking within that setback.
Oh, I understand the reason for the variance. I'm asking the question, why wasn't the parking lot just shifted slightly and avoid the problem altogether?
Yeah, part of it was construction costs. It would make the parking lot a little bit bigger and shift it down. And then we wanted to get it closer to the access to the trailhead, just so that we don't have, it would basically be a dead space there with a field, rather than having a parking area right next to the access to the trailhead.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
Ma'am, we've got to wait till you come up for public comment. Yep.
So one of the concerns is also if the further away the parking lot is, the more likely people will park on the road, which is the current problem. And so if you have the parking lot as close to the trail as possible, that'll help alleviate.
But we're talking 100 feet, right? I mean, it's not that far. It's not a significant deal. I mean, it seems like we could consider imposing, you know, if you're gonna design it without the proper setback, that we should be thinking about additional berming or landscaping or something like that to try and screen it. Because the whole purpose for the setback is just to try to minimize the visual appearance in this area that's important. So I just throw that out there for commissioners to consider.
And the vault toilet, this is a single vault toilet, a one-holer?
Two.
It's a two, okay.
That'd be two.
That's adequate for the parking facilities that we have.
It's a pre-manufactured vault toilet. It's the standard US Forest Service vault
You
toilet.
scroll down, Connor, like one more page, it'll have a picture of it there, right there.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of you know, a similar thing, you know, the Tony Grove parking their area there at the lake, you know, probably fairly similar. You know, lots of traffic comes in, goes on a quick hike. It seems to me that's sorely undersized for just a two station vault toilet.
Yeah, and I would think Tony Grove's quite a bit busier than this would be, but.
Well, as it currently is configured, my concern is that, you know, as it's configured now, you've got, it's been difficult to access the loop, but it was still pretty busy when it was in that condition, and now we open it up to, you know, basically build an access facility. That's going to be, I think we could have a very busy area because it's not, you don't have to drive a half hour up the canyon to go there. This is an easy place to have recreation in the valley. To me, this could be a very, very busy thing. I think there probably needs to be a little foresight into what it could really be.
Do they have bigger than that at Green Canyon, they have just a two hole there, I believe.
I think Green Canyon's a little different though, because they have multiple facilities there, right? Because
Different
you can go
levels.
Up the
Their
canyon
main,
there.
their main parking is right at the bottom where the toilets
bottom,
are, though. It's right at the
Sure,
bottom,
but,
and They're just, I think, two toilets there.
But there's also, multiple facilities, you can keep going up the canyon, and so it's not like you have this terminal area where you park and then everybody recreates from there. I would think, maybe not the volume, but the type of a facility would be more like Tony Grove.
Yeah, I would think a two would be.
I was gonna say, this is very similar to the Wellsville Murray one, and I've been up there a bunch, and that's, never seen all the parking stalls used. Now, this, may, because that road being improved, may change it a lot, but the one there in Wellsville is really good access, and I've never seen all the parking stalls used.
Yeah.
But, as growth comes and people become aware of it, you'll see more of it. But for now, I would think that is very adequate compared to the Wellsville scenario.
So just one note on the vault toilets too, is there's 45 stalls, but people will be, they'll be trickling in. So you'll have somebody come and they'll leave for an hour and a half, 2 hours, come back. So it's not going to be a constant demand on that toilet. So 45, it's just going to be trickling in and out. So we feel like the 2 toilets is sufficient for that amount of parking. In this case, in this scenario anyway.
Mr. Chairman, Mike, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doug.
I was just gonna say, so throughout this, there's multiple, under the conditions, there's multiple places where it refers to permits. 6, it talks about permits for the road. 8, talks about encroachment permits. 11, plan prior to recording to the permit, making sure things are in place. But if this, I realize that, I guess the problem I'm having is, I realize this is the county and Mendon City, but if this was private enterprise, none of this construction would have started. I've heard quite a bit of feedback from public citizens, as well as we got a packet here today, concerned with the amount of work that's already been done, cutting trees and stuff. Has there been any permits issued for this at this point?
Sorry, I would just say that that's part of the separate road project. That's not part of this conditional use permit. Matt could probably talk further about what's been going on with the road improvements, but,
It's not this.
it's not this. Yeah, no work has been done on the.
We'll have Matt come up in a minute to clarify some of that then. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you gonna talk about Whisper Ridge, the trails?
Well, that was part of my concern was when I looked at this, I kind of thought of Whisper Ridge, but I thought of it more so from the standpoint that work had started before they, and so I didn't realize that these other projects were separate, but I know that there was a lot of concern when Whisper Ridge came through here from the county with their bike trails and such, with the steepness, with erosion, with everything else, and so.
Yeah, we had a hard stop on that one.
Yeah.
For that as well. So those were just things that popped into my head, with previous projects that we'd seen, and then just the increase on the impact here. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a needed facility. I think it'll be a great thing. I just want to make sure that we're doing it right, as we do it. And it seems like some of these may be a little preliminary.
And I think for me, part of that is doing it right, and also doing it economically feasible, right? So we got a city with a pretty small tax base, trying to provide a pretty nice public amenity, getting grants to do that. I think the estimate in there was 2.2 million, as I looked through that, one of the things. And to go bigger, because we know in the future it probably will need more, I think it's better to come back later and adjust that CUP if they need to add more parking 10 or 15 years down the road. maybe we look at that when it becomes a problem. Wellsville might be the same with that one up there. The Murray Trailhead, it may get busier and busier. But I think seeing that this is not a for-profit business, a local city that's trying to make something good for the whole county. I mean, it'll get used by a lot of people, I think. To me, if they have those 45 park stalls that the traffic study calls for, I think for now. And I think that the two-pit toilet, I mean, I spent a week in Glacier, and every stop in Glacier, it's a two-pit toilet, and I'm guessing each of those pull-offs sees at least 1,000 vehicles a day, if not more. They probably pump them more often.
Daily.
Yeah, they have to pump more often, but the amount of people going in and out, I think, is gonna be adequate. Again, spread out through a day, if those 45 lots were all full during a time. I would think that's, at least my opinion, that would be adequate for that part of it. Any more questions for this gentleman? And thank you. Angie, you've got a comment there?
Yeah, I was just going to add a note that wasn't included in the staff report, some more historical background, but this design process has been going on for a few years. There were 3 different options that were looked at for parking, one towards the east end, one kind of in the middle, and this top parking, and just the distance to the trailhead, and again, trying to prevent people from parking on the street. So it was decided between Mendon City and the county that the preferred option was this parking area.
Further east, that field starts to get more slope too,
It
doesn't it?
does,
If you get-
yeah.
I mean, it's a little ways, but then it starts to drop off.
But yeah, but there is definitely the option in the future that we've already kind of looked at different designs and different spots for other parking that could be connected with a trail through the parking areas up to the trailhead. But yeah, there's been extensive discussions on the design and location of this trailhead parking lot, but Wellsville City could also, Mendon City could also speak to that and how the decisions were made on that. But just want to give you a little more historic context on that.
Thanks, Angie. Matt, would you come up and maybe just say what the county's done, maybe before the public comments, so that we know what is part of what project?
I can come after or before.
Have you come first? And maybe after, if we have more questions.
So if we go back in time a few years, when Wayne's Loop was opened and that was drawing a lot of attention, even this CUP, I think we should make sure we discuss the trail, because without the trail, there's no need for this trailhead. Maybe an improved trailhead for Deep Canyon, but for Wayne's Loop, that's really the driving factor of this, and that's why it was shut down before, because the trail was done. So during that time, we have counts in different places where you're getting 60 different cars that are parked on the road, lots of traffic. That road was never meant for that kind of traffic or those kind of impacts. Now, whether this trail project or the CUP is approved or not, doesn't alleviate the county road department or public works from providing some type of safe access up to what's currently there. Right now, that's what's the county has a plan to go up there and try to put that road back, prevent drainage, and put a road back in there. That's why they're separate. Is our project is to focus on what's there and getting people up and down that road to the current trailhead. So there's a lot of improvements that need to be done on that road. There's drainage issues, there's, the road's not in the right spot, there's slope issues, there's grade issues. That road's probably just drove one time and then drove another time and drove another time. So I don't think there was any engineering that went into that. So currently, the county would like to go up there and improve the road, regardless of whether the trail project is approved or not. Now, if that's possible, I know there's some conditions in there that talk about us finishing our project and then they're gonna add on to that project. It's possible that our project could get shut down. We don't know, but our plans are to go improve that road and to do it per county standards. We're required by county code, state code, if we're gonna go start doing improvements to roads and changing grades, we need to bring that to the current county code. That road doesn't meet current county code, and it's gonna need to be widened with a lot of drainage improvements. But the county hasn't done anything. They've done some prep work, and they've mobilized some of their equipment there, but currently the county hasn't done any grading, and they did start to remove some of the trees that are along the road because the road needs to be widened.
Wider.
Correct. So, any other questions?
Thanks, Matt.
If I can, just take a few more minutes, I do, just to make sure that we cover some of the conditions. So the garbage is one of those where I feel like maybe the garbage inside the building is maybe we should look at some dumpsters outside. The vault toilets, I would say that we should probably put a condition in somewhere in that report that talks about the vault toilets being approved by the health department. Currently, there's nothing in those conditions, so if Mendon City's gonna put a vault toilet on their property, they should at least get some kind of, approval from the health department and the state potentially. The letter of intent doesn't talk about whether this is year-round use or winter or just summer. That makes a big difference on what this approval is gonna do to the county forces, because again, the trail or this public park that's being built up there, we're gonna have to provide maintenance to that. It's in the county, so year-round maintenance would be an issue that we should probably make sure gets in the condition or clarified whether they are planning on year-round.
Can I ask a question, just
Sure.
a clarification on that? I know there are grant funds that are going into completing this project. Are those federal funds, federal highway funds?
Those are the American Rescue, those are related to COVID, and then
Okay.
Stephen and those guys could answer it better. They've got some from other committees, the state, Forest Service has chipped in, RAPS, so.
Trails are, if they receive certain types of funding, are required to be kept open year-round?
That I don't know. I know that the funding they have doesn't really necessarily pay for road improvements. It'll pay for the park to help, during COVID, everyone needed a place to go, so those funds are being well spent on providing a place for people to go. But I know there's some restrictions on outside of that, parking area trailhead of what those can be used for.
Matt, not having been up there, how's that road compare to the Cherry Peak Road? Steeper, same steepness?
This road is a gravel road that's, at certain times, it's four-wheel drive only.
But what I'm saying is if it's paved and you're trying to get people in and out of there in the winter, is it steeper than Cherry Peak, similar? What do you?
That's yeah, it's steep. Right now, the flattest slope we can get's just a little under 14%, which doesn't meet our current manual, but you're trying to go up a mountain, so 14%, I think it's like 13.5% is the flattest we can get it.
And there's one really steep spot.
Yeah.
You putting rubber guardrails?
The other one that hasn't been brought up a whole lot yet is just the future trails. I know some of those future trails are going down and around and even on some private property. So it'd be nice to make sure that if we're gonna approve the CUP and it's a map of all those future trails, that we're clear on which ones are being approved as part of the CUP and which ones are not. Those are on other parcels. They could also, if they're approved at the same time, they wouldn't have to come back to this board or the planning commission, and so that would also increase traffic and impacts. There's also part of the traffic thing. Mendon does have some narrow, windy roads that get up to this, so I don't want it to be overlooked that it's potentially through the traffic study and the traffic impact study that there might be improvements that are substantially far away from this project. As you get a lot of traffic that's coming from out of Mendon area, or it's drawing public, there is some potential road issues that might need to be solved as part of this project down within Mendon city limits as well. You guys mentioned Murray Trailhead. I think it's a point to note is Murray Trailhead is on Forest Service property and didn't have to come to the Planning Commission because they're exempt from all of our stuff. So any of their parking lot size, their vault toilet, all those things, they just get to do what they want. So this is kind of a new one for us. I'm excited that the county's trying to help facilitate recreation. I think it's a well-needed area for the county, and I think there could be lots more of these behind this one that the county supports in one way or another. So, thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Does the applicant have any comments before we open it up to public comment?
John Hartman, I'm Mendon City Council. I'm over water. I know some of the issues that have been raised deal with watershed and so forth, and I've submitted a letter addressing that. That's one of the reasons for moving this up to the top end. The east edge potentially is more within our watershed area, but our water protection zones, at least the first three, are not within this upper area. It actually goes westward a ways, but then moves to the south and so forth. So there is not a water quality issue to our water sources, and again with a vaulted toilet and so forth, it's not a septic system and so forth. So that's within our ability to not have to worry about our water concerns. Revegetation plan, concern over trees and those kind of things. We are going to use native plantings and so forth to reestablish, and this is in an agricultural field, but the upper end, as you could expect, steeper, a little rockier as it comes out, and so moving farm equipment over that, it's marginal at best. It's dry land farm anyway, and so we're not up in the forest in the trees. This is actually out on agricultural property and so forth. Our better agricultural land is down further, and that's one of the things, being a farmer, so forth. I've tried to encourage the city not to do stuff down where we can still farm and have somebody be able to manage that, dealing with the Dyer's Wood and all those kind of things. So that's again another reason that we wanted it moved up to the top. Okay.
Thanks, John. Anyone from the public? I know we got one. Can you state your name?
I'm ready. I appreciate the road improvements.
State your name first so we have.
My name is Jessa Watkins. My family, I was born and raised in Mendon. I know that road like the back of my hand and feet. I've been hiking up in those trails since I was a little girl. That area means a lot to me. I appreciate the improvements on the road itself. It makes driving up there a lot easier, and I am very deeply concerned, though. I found out from a neighbor who sent an email out to a lot of us that these older growth trees were cut down, and I really would like to understand what kind of legal process the county went through to justify that. For many of us, trees really matter. There is a profound word that the Shoshone people, who were the original inhabitants of this valley, the original human inhabitants, used, called Dama. And Dama means hour. And it is a profound hunter-gatherer word that means this is our mountain, Dama Doyabe, our trees. And when I received my neighbor's email, I felt pain. And I'm really, really sad about it. And to me, cutting down mature, healthy trees should have due public process and should be going through a very strong legal system that supports not only our design for a parking lot and more recreation, but the other residents of the mountain. This parking lot will be created in a very sensitive wildlife corridor. We should be considering the impact that our development will be having on the trees, the birds, the animals, the wildlife. We're going there to enjoy that. That's what we all love and enjoy and want to connect with. And we should be in deep consideration of our ecosystem. So that is my first concern. And the second is I am hoping that there will not be artificial light impact in that parking lot, because artificial light impact in a sensitive wilderness area can really cause harm. So I'd like to know if there's any kind of an artificial light. Great. And then as far as what happened with the trees, a lot of us are really confused and concerned. How can we look more deeply into the county's process with cutting the trees down?
You can meet with the county road department. They're the ones that are
Okay.
widening that road, so that's that county road department.
So that has nothing to do with
We
planning
don't-
and zoning?
We don't have any approval process for that here.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Anyone else like to comment? Yep, come on.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Allen, and I own the parcel of ground that is directly east of what used to be the Waynes Loop Trail. Yes, yep, I own that parcel of ground right there. And I'm not here to tell anybody where they can or can't recreate or what you want to do. I would just like the county and the city of Mendon to know that when the Waynes Loop Trail opened up spontaneously a few years ago, I was on a weekly basis repairing my fences from being cut down. And the problem is, one person cuts the fence down. And there was a loop that went right out about on the north-south line, about in the middle there. There's one loop that came by. And someone cut the fence down, and people were just, finding a shortcut in or out, or I don't know. But by the time I get the fence back up, now there is a pretty established trail that goes right through my property. Well, you put the fence back up, well, the next guy sees that established trail. Well, the fence comes down pretty quick the next time. And I'm not exaggerating. It is a weekly put the fence back up thing in that area. And it's not just in the summer. I have snowmobilers come through, take the fence down. I have snowshoers come, take the fence down. So again, I'm not here to say do or don't put up a trail. I am an avid cyclist myself. I will ride my 18th Lotaja this weekend, so I'm as big a cyclist as anybody else. So I just want to give you a different perspective that property damage, specific to my property, is a big issue there. That's all I want to say.
Hi, my name is Allison Ward, and I am the board chair of Cache Trails Alliance. And we've worked with the County Trails program for quite a few years on getting Deep Canyon opened back up. I mean, certainly the Deep Canyon Trail has been there, probably predates all of us that's in this room. And certainly the addition of Waynes Loop put increased stress on that area. It's one of the very few trailheads that access the Wellsvilles, in addition to the Murray Trailhead and the Rattlesnake Trailhead in Sardine Canyon. And so I just want to emphasize the importance of this trailhead being a really solid access point to the public land that's above there. And I know that the private landowners have had some challenges there. And from Cache Trails Alliance perspective, we would be happy to be working with the county and making sure that their signage. Honestly, there's been a lot of growing pains in the valley with getting new trails, as there's been a bigger and bigger push to get more trails in the valley, especially just right on the periphery, right the front range of both the Bear River Range and the Wellsville ranges. So the Deep Canyon experience has taught the community a lot of what to do and what not to do. And so, this really will help set precedents of how we move forward with getting additional trails on the front range of the canyon. So, having this process work well and having good conversations like we're having tonight are extremely important for, again, setting precedents of moving forward. We have some ideas of trails in Richmond with a private landowner. There's some land swap ideas going on in Millville. And so more and more of these ideas will be coming up to the county council and the planning and zoning commission in the near future. So just wanted to kind of put that plug plug in, that we need to make sure that we're all talking and having open discussions. I feel the pain with the trees being cut down. I mean, we want to do this right, and so we just need to kind of continue having these open forums. But again, appreciate the opportunity to for public comment, and hope that we can all kind of get to a space where we're all talking and feel good about moving forward with this project. So.
Thank you.
My name's Doug Hunsaker, and we own some property about a half mile to the east of the proposed lot here. Our road, we live on a private drive, or we own a house there, and there's 2 houses on that private drive. And that private drive opens up right at the bottom of a hill. All of the locals that live there know about the existence of that private drive. But it gets dangerous when there's a lot of people that don't know the area. And we have 4 young kids and 1 on the way in 2 weeks. And so that is a point of concern for us. I don't know who to talk to about that, but that we feel a little bit, powerless to protect our kids right there on that drive. And, as they get older, 15 years from now, they're learning to drive. They'll be pulling out on that road. And it's just a major blind spot that the locals, again, know about. But if we open this up to the public, I think that's one of the locations that they were talking about with the roads and improving down into Mendon so that it's safe for people who don't know the area to be driving around there. So that's all I wanted to share. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Commissioners, further questions for staff or their engineer?
So the question on the trails, I mean, that'll be done in a next phase, but the point that Matt made, I think, was really good. I mean, we approved this and we're basically giving the go-ahead on those things, and that's, I just go back, it seems like maybe a lot of this is premature, that we haven't got all the planning in. I don't know that we'd be excited to approve a proposal like this from another entity. All that said, love the concept that that we can improve access and make a better experience for utilizing this area. But I do have my concerns about this proposal, that we've really crossed the T's and dotted the I's on it.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So I have worked or been with Mendon City Council, been to their meeting, and I will ask Mr. Hardman a question on some of the trails and also the environmental impact of the toilets. Mendon, I think, has been very, very cautious. I mean, they're the ones who closed Waynes Loop. I also had some citizens reach out to me about the road. I've worked with municipal services on that road. And I agree with the trees, but I also wonder if the trees are in the path of the width of what the county road has. So we'll get some clarification on that. Mr. Hardman, the future trails, are they just going to be on Mendon city property, or are they going to be on some private, or do you know the depth or how that goes on that future trails? And then has an application been made to Bear River Health as far as the toilets go?
No application to Bear River Hill. As far as the trails, my impression was they were on the city. We have 2 competing interests up there. One is cross-country skiing that people would like to be able to do, and then obviously Waynes Loop and the bicycle. So the trails were to try to help provide opportunities for both entities to be able to enjoy that area. But like I say, my understanding, at least what I've seen, was on Mendon City.
And that was my understanding, but The commissioners have brought up some good points. Steepness of trails and the slopes, and also the environmental impact. Thanks, Matt, for bringing that up on the bathroom, and then the future trails. And my understanding is it's on Mendon City property, but if we could confirm that, that would be nice too.
Not based on the map that I'm looking at. I mean,
They would leave it.
if they're wanting us to approve the future BSG trail, that's definitely crossing a bunch of private property.
Then we need some understanding on
That would be
that.
on the Allen's property, a lot of it.
The phase 2 trails too are also on other private property. So yeah, some clarification on that would be helpful.
Awesome. And Chris, to your point, the variance and 100 feet, is that something that could be worked out, Mr. Hardman, or what's your thoughts there on that?
You're talking the one that was approved yesterday? Or?
No, just where Chris was talking.
It was approved
Oh, it
yesterday.
was, okay, yeah. So as was said, I think the discussion is good, but I think there are a few points that would make the commission feel better, but I do give heads to Mendon City for working on this. They've had a challenge, is try to meet the traffic and everything else, so I think getting a few more things clarified would help too.
Yeah, if I can just respond to a couple of items. On the variance request, just to let you know, it's very limited. I think it allows 20 parking spaces. So that area that you see that's open with the picnic tables and benches, that will never be allowed to be converted into parking. So it's a very narrow approval of just a few of the parking spaces. I'm not actually sure if the pit vault toilet needs Bear River, but yeah, we can definitely follow up on that. I believe that's being funded by the Forest Service. Is that right?
Pit toilets are, there's a standard dig for the depth that is supposed to be, it's pretty standard across all.
Yeah, and my understanding is the contractor that we're using, they provide the pit vault toilet and install it, so I think they're very well versed in how to do that.
Pretty standard language that we.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a letter down here from the health department saying they support the project, but different department maybe.
I'm Emily Fletcher. I'm the Assistant Trails Planner for Cache County, and to my knowledge, we have spoken with the health department, and they told us we did not need approval for this location.
But we put a condition in there, and you just have to get written approval from the health department on that.
Saying that we
Just
don't
an
need
email
it.
saying they don't need it. Yeah, it's
It's
easy to add in there.
standard language that we put on conditional use, that they have to, that you must receive approval from
We can definitely do that.
the health department on that.
Which trails, Emily, then are you guys wanting us to approve?
To my knowledge, the additional trails don't have a finalized alignment right now.
So it's probably hard to
So-
approve those.
Yeah. Wayne's Loop is already built. I think that section in the center might not be built yet. That's connecting the two sides to make it a shorter loop, but
Is that what's marked as existing trail?
yes.
That's all on city property, right, John? At Wayne's Loop? Looks like some of the phase 2 trails, though, that head towards the east into town are probably crossing other property as well, right?
My understanding was it was on Mendon, but based on the map, I agree with what you're saying.
Seems like on the trail item, maybe we're just approving the Wayne's Loop trail.
And then any future improvements have to come back before the commission.
And that gives you opportunity to know at that point what the traffic's like, if that needs to be enlarged when they do more trails.
Well,
That
they'll
would be
have
fine
all
to
the,
adjust that.
if they need agreements with landowners and stuff like
they'd have
that,
to
they'll
get
have
all
all
that.
that stuff in place too. I just don't want to approve trails on private lands when the landowners aren't even aware of.
Well, and even when they don't know where they're gonna go for sure, that makes sense for sure.
To my understanding, there is a trails committee with Minden who has plans.
I'm not on that committee.
Okay.
Councilman Brian Myers is
Yeah.
hunting mountain goats once in a lifetime with his son up in Colorado. Otherwise, he'd be here. Mary, Mike Morgan, was on the city council over the trails and has done a lot of the work with the trails people in the county and all this, and then Brian's now stepped in.
Is there, I mean, do trails come before the planning commission?
No, if we've ever had any that have applied.
Whisper Ridge.
Well, that Whisper Ridge, but it was
Part of
mainly
a
because they
bigger
were so
development.
blatant ahead of time.
True, but it was also part of a bigger development
Yeah, it wasn't
project
just
where there's a whole a whole slew of stuff.
It wasn't just a trail.
When they were in the resort recreation zone, recreation resort.
So I think our opinion is that the trail facility, because it's part of the recreation, under the use classification, that it had to be included as part of the approval. And that any modification, because the amount of trails also has an impact on the traffic, has an impact on parking. And so my opinion would be that additions onto the trail system would need to be a modification to or need to be approved as part of CUP or a modification to an existing CUP. It is, when it comes to like sensitive lands, our code is a little bit, we don't have anything that really addresses trails.
Yeah.
We do have some stuff that we added to that exempted private roadways and drives and utilities from steep slopes considerations.
Not really
But it's not exactly specific towards trails, so.
Yeah, and that's why I bring it up, is, I mean, we've had some real challenges with that over the years, just simply having people be able to access their property by making a road cut. And to me, this is very similar. The Wellsvilles are not they're steep range, and if you're doing trails in there, there's going to be some significant cutting and potential for stormwater impacts there. So I think that any of those should probably come back. Any improvement or extension of that should come back before the commission.
Okay, commissioners, is there conditions you want to add? Any you want to alter? Other recommendations?
So with how do we address, because there's been a few people that have noted the impact that the safety of the travel to and from the trailhead is going to have on that 1000 South. Is there anything we can do in this CUP where the road is outside of that CUP to?
Yeah, I don't think I don't.
The traffic study does, and Paul could probably address this a little bit more, does recommend a few changes to roadways within Mendon City. Mostly there's kind of a screwy intersection
right at the bottom,
where they recommend changing up some stop signs and taming down some brush. Other than that, I think the study, and once again, Paul could talk to this in more detail, believes that the roadway, once improved to the standard, will be adequate for the amount of traffic that's going to and from the trailhead. But I think what we'd probably want to do, or my recommendation would be that we would condition that the access to the trailhead would have to be improved based on the traffic study provided and Cache County standard.
Which is really what they've already proposed, isn't it? I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Do we need to address a couple of the questions that Matt asked as far as conditions with the time of operation as far as when it's going to be open?
Yeah, it sounds like year round if they're doing cross-country skiing in the winter and biking in the summer.
Is that right, John? You guys from planning?
You need to help with that.
Yes, they
Because
can.
in reality, it's not physically accessible during snowy winters.
If they're really snowy, I've got up there in some pretty snowy conditions.
What's that?
See, I've made it up there in some pretty
John,
snowy conditions.
in our discussions, and Matt's recommendation, and I guess we need to jump whatever hoops, the thought was that, that road would be closed in the wintertime, that last segment that goes up into the
From that last driveway.
There currently, we've allowed, the county to put a snowplow turnaround, a small asphalted area. If we were to do the cross-country skiing, it would be possible for a few vehicles to use a portion of that if we absolutely needed to. But, and I have no problem with what you're saying. If you don't want to approve the new trail stuff, that's probably stuff we still need to think through. It was included on the map. We're open to that, just like you've all talked. Minden City wants to try to provide some recreation to our residents and others, and so if we can marry those successfully, but I have no problem going with just what we've currently got and then coming back and asking for additional permission.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask open up one other can of worms on this one? It was mentioned in the packet about events. Are events planned as part of Minden City or other organizations? You know, you put a mountain bike trail, there's a potential for for having organizations want to organize races or other events around this, and that further complicates the parking, the access, the restroom facilities, garbage, all of those things, if events are involved.
Yeah, and that was a concern brought up by Public Works, and so we addressed that in saying that if anything like that were to occur, they'd have to apply for that special event permit, and that could be denied during that if it's going to be too great of an impact, so. But yeah, that would be the mechanism. We wouldn't automatically allow events, but they would have to go through our special event process and have that reviewed.
Was that in the conditions?
I didn't see it.
I think it was in the description, the narrative, but I don't think it was in the conditions.
Yeah, that's an easy add, but yeah.
And I go back to Tony Grove. If you've been up to Tony Grove when the Bear 100 or whatever that race is going on, there are cars parked all the way down the canyon, and the whole canyon is lit up at that all night long during that time. And I just think of events can be a major impact on a resource like this. So I would propose that we add a condition, or a specific condition to what is indicated in the packet, that it'd have to be receive a special event permit.
So that could be 18, and 19 would be the approval or letter from the health department saying no approval's needed in there.
And 20 would be that we're only approving the existing trail.
Okay, any other questions or additions?
Others to add to the list.
Did you want to see anything else on the encroachment on that road movement, or are you fine with that?
I mean, I think there's clearly been a lot of work on this. I'm always an advocate of good design, and I see a simple solution there design-wise, but you know, they're well down the road on this, and so I don't feel the need to force them to move out of something they've already got a variance for.
And I felt better with the source protection zone, that if we move it east, that puts us more into that source protection zone as well.
Okay.
Is there anything that needs to be on a condition as far as seasonal use, if we're gonna close the parking lot in it? From that steep loop up, because county's not gonna plow that, not gonna have the parking lot open.
So is that gonna be up to the city or the county to make that determination? County?
County closes the
County
road.
closes the road, so.
But the facility itself could technically remain open if you were willing to cross-country ski up to.
Yeah, but that puts a parking problem back on that road situation, so that's why I'm saying I almost think there ought to be a seasonal thing on this, so that you've got something in the bite of the conditional use permit to say, well, we did discuss that, because I don't think the citizens want snowshoers or those others parking at the bottom of that incline to the last lane.
How does that impact Minden City? How does that impact Minden City's plans if a condition were imposed on seasonality, that the road would be closed and?
That's what's been discussed, Matt, in working with the city and the trails people and so forth, that, again, and you pointed it out, there's a steep section there. Even with all the improvements, I can see somebody coming.
Oh, yeah.
All the way to the bottom.
We've all been there. You've been down that road.
And as far as the road improvements that have been identified, Minden has already been working with our city engineer, and proposed through the road, I forget what that's called anyway, we already have an application ready to go to try to make some improvements, especially at the intersection as you come up. For us, it's 300 north, 1,000 south for you, but there's already efforts and engineering that's gone into trying to solve that.
So it may be as easy as a condition in here too, but a sign on the road that says when the road's closed, facilities are also closed or something like that, so people know at the bottom that.
Yeah, we need to have something in there so that it's part of the CUP.
I mean, in
Because the
reality,
seasonal's hard,
we
because-
have winters
Yeah,
when
you
it's
can go up
open.
there all year
and you
almost.
and you could access that.
But that's, couldn't you leave it like that? I mean, if you just put that it's like the forest roads are closed November 14th till, I guess, April or May 14th, and there's many years that you could still get up past them and not tear up anything, so how do you
Well, I think that's why instead of a season, I think you just have it when the county closes the road, there's a sign saying the facilities above it are
facility
closed.
is
So it may
closed.
not be those same dates every year, it's
Very
based on
flexible.
conditions. Some years you can be up there till Christmas, and some years you're done by Halloween.
Well,
To
I'm
me,
not
that makes
sure.
more sense, so it can be
I don't know that
reused.
we could capture what Minden City and the county needs as far as in language here. I think that we have to allow some trust that they can manage it. They have some autonomy to figure out what the right way to do it.
I do think there's wisdom in at least addressing it in the CUP so that if there is an issue, it can be, at least it's been noted. But currently that road is not seasonally closed by the county. And so if you can drive it, you can go up it. But in a couple weeks, there will be a proposal to shut that road down during the winter just because of lack of maintenance. If Jason's back here, an ambulance in the middle of the winter is going to have a really tough time getting up that road. So for public health and safety, there will be a seasonal closure as approved by the county council for that road. So something to the effect that, service, some kind of a service thing there, but the county's not going to maintain that road throughout the year. So that's going to be inaccessible pending what the council approves for that seasonal closure.
Once the snow starts coming, there's not a lot of bikers up there. Once you get to the end of October, the hunting seasons are over, so the hunters aren't parking up there for the most part.
That goes into November.
Is there,
Weather kicking in,
Yeah.
shuts you down.
I don't recall hearing or seeing, but is the parking lot gonna be gated at all? Is there gonna be a gate there that you can use to close or anything like that?
It won't be gated, no.
Yeah.
I was gonna make the same point, Matt, in terms of, making it obvious in the CUP, because it just went back through the letter of intent and it talks about hours of operation, but it doesn't really say it's a year-round deal. I think maybe that's the intent, that it is more or less year-round, just open dawn to dusk.
Well,
But it might be good to.
Again, there's other, as that, when it's closed and people still want to use it, that creates additional impacts. Small story last week in the lower place that the county built for turning around, there was people camped with a fire with these 30-foot long trailers, and the sheriff had to go try to kick them out. So, you never know what you're going to get, but if someone's dying to go up there in the winter, they're going to find a spot to park, which creates other impacts. So,
I'd like the CUP to state seasonality, because if the council considers closing that, it just reflects it in the CUP better.
Yeah. But the operation is dependent upon the open, if the road is open kind of
Right.
thing. And then if the council approves in November to, June closing, then that's when it is,
You just use the word seasonality in there. Is that good enough?
That's a good question, because,
I like the links, like Matt was saying, you tie it to the road being closed or not.
Yeah, because if we're gonna close it, there's no access to the parking and they
Yeah,
shouldn't be up there.
subject to the county closing the road, because that,
Just something mentioned in there would help us, so.
you got some wordage for that, Connor?
Well, I was in Green Canyon this last week, and there's a lower gate that says closed November 15th, and then another gate that says closed December 15th. So they're figuring that, oh, snow's gonna hit here, and they're gonna close that gate, and then snow's gonna be bad enough by December that we're gonna close it here. So it was interesting that in Green Canyon, they've addressed that, because that turns into a huge cross-country skier deal.
Yeah, they start grooming that, that's really busy. Okay, any other conditions we would like to add or alter?
So is that 21 conditions?
We're up to 21.
We can get more.
I said I was done, but we did discuss garbage.
Yeah, we can add another, one can ain't gonna service 45 cars.
Well, and that's it.
They'll end up putting them in the latrine or in the toilets, and then they won't be able to pump them, and
But if
But that's on Mendon, you got any answer, Mr. Hardman?
I don't see a problem with putting a dumpster. So forth, again, we've agreed on the taking care of the toilet, the trash, the
Right.
general maintenance there, so if you wanna say put a dumpster there.
I want to call Waste Management and see
Have
if they
we-
want to drive up that road first.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Well, and it
What's
may
our
be,
normal
yeah,
verbiage
we're taking
on that?
responsibility, maybe that
What's
we
our
have to,
normal
we
verbiage?
have to bring it down to our city building and put a
Yeah.
dumpster there.
Adequate waste provision.
That's a,
Our normal wording on that is something similar to adequate waste removal. Maybe that's, I think that's what we normally do for these, and so the applicant can determine
what that is.
what's appropriate. Because I think they'll find quickly that one garbage can at the toilets is not going to be adequate, but we could leave it up to them to,
Yeah,
provide
it gets hard with those.
Yeah.
You leave a little one, you leave a bigger one and it gets full faster, it seems like sometimes, but it is, they'll have a fun time working on that one. Instead of just using it while you're in the bathroom, like, oh, we can empty our truck while we're here too, because they got a big one outside. But yeah, we could add something about that, adequate waste removal will be provided.
That'd be 22 there.
It is hard to know what that
or is that 23?
Is that 20, well, that's the road? That's 22.
Cover my mouth, I'm not talking anymore.
That's good.
Okay, next. Anyone want to make a motion, one way or the other? If we're done adding conditions.
Get more?
You got more? I don't. I'll jump at once.
Ready?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the Deep Canyon Trailhead Parking and Trails Project, CUP, with the 22 conditions and 2 conclusions. Get that right?
So. We've
I'll
got a
second that.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Josh, are they thinking of making a trail all the way to Rattlesnake Ridge or the Murray parking?
Well, my understanding, I'm not with the trails, and that's not my.
Oh, that's right, you said.
But there's been talk of doing a Bonneville Shoreline Trail to go all the way around the mountain at some point, so this gives us one step to maybe realize something like that, so.
Yeah. Well, no, it should be a neat deal. The one in Wellsville doesn't, like I say, I've been there a bunch this summer, and it really, I've never seen all the parking spaces full. And then Green Canyon was up there the other day, and it's still really rough compared to either of these type proposals. And that seems to get quite a lot more traffic than I would think this would get. Even with the improvements, because Green Canyon is so close to the population.
The interesting thing about this one is if you go on Google and look for trails, this is rated nationally as one of the top.
Yeah.
So I actually went up there on a Saturday, holy cow. It was more out-of-state cars than what was Utah cars.
Wow.
So it's being impacted, and Mendon wisely shut it down because we were experiencing that, but once one person finds it and puts it on a Google thing, it just spreads like crazy.
You went up on Saturday? Because I went to Rattlesnake Ridge on Saturday and only saw three other people by the time I got all the way to the top and back.
No, this one was 2 years ago when I went up.
Oh, when you, okay.
I think it's because this one is the bike trail, and it's a good bike trail for mountain bikes. It's a good trail.
Yeah.
And that's why. And the others are hiking and horses.
Yeah.
All right, Connor, transportation master plan discussion.
Yeah, Matt Phillips, the Public Work Director, will be presenting on that item.
This is a very interesting discussion if you folks want to.
We'll let you out for a second.
Yes, sir. Nothing.
Well, that emptied the room.
Thanks, Megan.
I probably should have addressed this in the last one, but all the trees that have been cut down are on private property and not in the county right of way, so.
But the counties did.
Got permission from the private property owners, yeah. So,
Probably hang into the,
yeah.
we're gonna make road maintenance difficult.
I just wanted to quote a couple of things out of the county code. And one of them says, in the subdivision layout, it says, the subdivision layout shall conform to the Cache Countywide Comprehensive Plan, this title, and all other requirements of state code and this code. And it goes a little bit further down. It says, whenever a tract to be subdivided adjoins or embraces any part of an existing road as claimed by the county, or a proposed road designated within the countywide comprehensive plan, such part of the public way shall be platted and dedicated to the county. A couple of sections down there, it says, road patterns in a subdivision shall be in conformity with the most advantageous development of adjoining areas. The following principles shall be observed. Where appropriate, the design and terrain proposed road shall be continuous and in alignment with existing planned or platted roads with which they are to connect and based on the grid system common to Cache County. When I came to the county, there is no map of proposed roads or planned roads in the county that I'm aware of. So
That paragraph doesn't.
it's very hard when an application lies before Development Services and Public Works to say, I'm sorry, you can't have a private road because we have a planned public road that runs adjacent to your property, or yes, we have planned roads. So a few years ago, we embarked on a transportation master plan, and the consultant that we hired got to work, and he realized quickly that in the county, it's very hard to do a transportation master plan because all of the techniques that are usually applied in the urban areas don't apply in the county. All of our roads don't have congestion. None of our signal lights fail. You know, it's just, so they started scratching their head. And so it's taken us a little while, but we essentially have three main points of our transportation master plan. One of them is a whole bunch of dead-end roads that need turnarounds on them to facilitate fire, EMS, public safety in general. The bus system calls us on a general often because they can't turn their buses around. The trash, now that Waste Management's involved instead of Logan City, they're starting to refuse to go down some of these roads because they can't turn around. So turnarounds and dead-end roads in the county are a huge problem. The other one is the connectivity. We have a lot of roads that dead end, you know, the same with the turnarounds. And so connectivity, turnarounds, and then just a lack of a capital improvement plan to get us in the next 10 years. So what we've been working on for quite a while, and why I'm presenting this to you guys, is that in your packet you should have had a draft transportation master plan. And our goal is to take that draft that we have and start dispersing that out to cities, different community leaders, brag, pretty much anyone and everyone that we can, to get some comments on. We're hoping to probably have that out in the public for comments for maybe a month, and then try to bring all those comments back, address them the best we can, and then bring a transportation master plan back to this body for approval, because these will be land use decisions. When we put a road and we have planned roads, that will be a decision that will affects development and where those are. So if a subdivision comes in, we have a approved transportation master plan showing a private or a public road along your property or through your property, that's going to affect land use. So when we look at this, we're going to need the land use authority to approve the transportation master plan, and also the county council. So we would like you guys to at least have a copy of that. We would love input. If we need a working group, whatever we want, we're looking for suggestions, comments back from you. We're getting development services on board at this point, so we can have their planners look at it. We're just trying to get all the input. We feel like we've got to a point now where we have a good draft, where we have some comments. There's a lot of maps. So not tonight, but over the next little while, we would like to get some feedback from you guys, knowing that in a month or two, you guys are getting, this will be before you for approval. Again, the goals, we're happy to take comments on everything, but really the three main things that the county needs to make sure that are vetted in their transportation master plan are capital improvements, which for my opinion kind of fall out of this body. That's really, where's the safety issues? Those things can be addressed, you know, better by our snow plows. They can tell you where all the unsafe areas are, substandard roads. But really for this body is, where do we want those planned roads? What should they look like, and how do we want our community to develop as far as connectivity? You know, do we want quarter-mile grids? Do we want half-mile grids? You know, and so that's where I think a lot of it could come from you guys, of your experience out in the county, some of the planning. But that's why it's before you, because we wanted to give you guys a chance to look at it, get any comments, feedback, and then that will come back around for your recommended approval, or however Stephen sees fit to get you guys' approval on that. And then the final plan will, you know, have some kind of a document in there that it was approved by the land use authority. I'm sure to make it legal and binding as we use that for development tools.
So essentially, the planning commission's role here, most master plans are treated as appendixes to the general plan as far as approval processes. And so we have to treat it as if it is a general plan amendment. So we have to notify other affected entities, we have to hold a public hearing in this body, and we have to make a recommendation to the county council on it.
Is there a time crunch? Because the general plan took quite a while. So if we're talking transportation plan of a month, I'm wondering if that's enough.
We're trying to,
3-4 months.
we're trying to be very aggressive, Nolan, so that is a good point. I think it's going to be hard to put this out and get good comments back in a month, so I don't think you'll see this on your next. But if we can put that out for a month, we get those comments back, we're able to have some open houses, you know. Again, we're leaning on development services to kind of help us through this process, so when it's all done, that we've done anything we needed to per state code, and that we've got good input. We don't want to have a road on a map that hasn't been thought about, and we feel like this is probably 3 years in the works of many meetings. Yeah, there's been some hiatuses there when the Public Works Department is busy, and engineering staff doesn't have time to get to it, but we're currently out gathering data. We've been gathering data to put ADTs in there to try to make sure that our maps that show ADTs are correct. So there's a few mistakes and just different things throughout this, but we don't want to delay it any longer. We want to get it out in front of people, get comments back, and if we have to do a revision in a few years, great. But and if there's roads that maybe we shouldn't be showing, but we are. But we've looked at the state, we've looked at CMPO, we've looked at COG, we've tried to look at other counties' transportation master plans. Things are always, but transportation is very dynamic, right? We put a plan together and it's approved, and 3 weeks later, Providence changes theirs. So we just need to get one so that we can start using it as a tool, because right now we don't have that tool. So private roads, those types of things become an issue, and it's not fair to development that they've bought land, not seen any type of transportation master plan or planned roads on their property. They come in for a subdivision, and then they're been told that, hey, by the way, did you know there's a planned road through your property? That's a taking in some aspects. So, but it'll be a good tool for development services and public works, and it will give us places to focus. There'll probably be 10 capital improvement projects that are listed in there to help us go after funds, whether it be county funds or whether that be COG funds or state funds. Then there'll be a list of turnarounds that are, again, trying to prioritize some of them. Those are not necessarily things that would be, maybe you guys could put comments on them, but that's not our main goal, is for you guys to try to help us come up with our top 10 projects and costs. That'll probably be part of a scoring analysis and different things. It's, in my mind, it's if we're missing anything big that should be part of our goals and objectives of the county, and then that connectivity in the planned roads. So, any comments back, Chris?
I had a quick question. Does the county's plan also show like what the other jurisdictions are showing on their transportation master plans?
Not in all cases. There was an attempt a few years ago to do what's called a COG transportation master plan that was going to try to tie all the communities together. I would say it was successful in some aspects and not so successful in other aspects. But the whole intent was that is the COG is a countywide body, and they were trying to pull all those so that 24-foot road in Smithfield was still 24-foot in Hyde Park. Our county transportation master plan it tries to take those into account so that we're at least planning. We don't want to plan a small road in between two big roads. So we've looked and tried to match that, but we're not really diving in to show what Smithfield's road is on our transportation master plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe part of where I was going with the question was sort of the county's role in the overall transportation planning, and I guess it makes more sense that that's the COG's job.
Yeah.
And that this is really just focusing on unincorporated areas, not necessarily the bigger, like a bypass to the west or something, for example.
Yeah,
Like
so
I didn't
we
see that on the maps or whatever.
Yeah, we would show the bypass. We would show like the South Valley corridor. So we've tried to match any of those COG projects or the CMPO projects, so that our transportation master plan and the planned roads we're not different than any of the other agencies, but those don't dive into our local roads. So a lot of our focus is trying to show those connections on the local scale. You know, the county's probably not going to go build too many arterials, right? That's not in our wheelhouse. But, you know, out in College Ward, there's a lot of roads that, you know, are Clarkston and Newton and, you know, and so someone goes out there and develops, you know, and does a subdivision. What we're doing is prohibiting when the cities come through or those local annexation zones. Now we've already approved something that kind of messes their grids up. So we're hoping to get comments back from the other cities, and if they're seeing something that's not consistent with what they would like. Our road manual also calls out that we don't use, that we would like to implement, so this is off topic a little bit, but a good example is between Smithfield and Hyde Park. The road manual has a classification of a road that would have curb, gutter, sidewalk, and all that in those areas. It's just never been utilized, so as we continue to get more planning and more progression in the Public Works Department, you'll probably see additional road designations so that when we are approving those intermediate projects between two cities and they're in future annexations, that the county will probably require curb, gutter, and sidewalk on projects in the not too distant future. So, any other questions?
Questions for
This is-
Matt?
So this is more of a heads up. I didn't.
Gives us something to read tonight.
Yeah, I didn't plan to dive into a deep dive during this meeting. I think that's probably, we're happy to meet one-on-one or however that works, or, you know, hopefully maybe with Development Services, we do some work groups that you guys can get invited to, or place, we haven't planned all that out. So this is kind of an early heads up, this is coming, and kind of maybe some expectations from the Planning Commission, so.
Great, thanks, Matt. Thanks. All right, next up.
Growing fast.
Code enforcement.
Okay, so this is also just kind of an introduction to probably a larger conversation that we need to have about our code enforcement and short-term rental policy. So the first question is, why do we want to talk about this today? Part of this has been something we've been talking about for a little bit. We talked about this at the beginning of this year as code that likely need to be updated. Also over the summer, we had a few issues, and I've had a few council members and the county executive's office ask me to start prioritizing some of these updates that we've been talking about. So they want to see some of these implemented. So we'll first talk about code enforcement. And so starting at the end of 2022, Cache County hired a full-time code enforcement officer. That officer has had 76 active investigations since he started. 63 have been resolved, mostly through voluntary compliance. We have a few that we've taken to court. We've had a few that was cease and desist, and a few fines that we've issued. But most of the success has just been just talking to people, working with people, and providing them a method to come into compliance on their own. One of the things that I would like to do that we'll talk a little bit more about is our code currently allows for criminal and civil penalties. Essentially what that does is a criminal is, like a misdemeanor or an infraction that we can levy against a property owner for violating the law. A civil is where we can file a fine against a property owner for violating the code. There's two different standards for judicial review for those, for both of those proceedings. For criminal, it is beyond a reasonable doubt, and for a civil penalty, it's a preponderance of evidence. So essentially, if it's a criminal, you have to be, the courts would have to be very sure that there's no reasonable doubt left that this person violated the law. But for a civil penalty, a preponderance of evidence essentially just means that the evidence supports that they are currently violating the code. And so it's a much simpler and lower bar that the county has to achieve in order to win in these civil cases. Our current civil penalty is set for $100 per day when a violation starts. The issue that we have, which I'll talk about in a second, is our civil penalties and process is not really outlined well in our code. And so the first issue that we have is that all violations are treated the same under the code. So if you are mining your property or you have a pile of junk in your property, it is treated the exact same with the exact same fine. And so some cases we've had is that, you know, we'll levy a fine against a property owner, and they're like, well, that's just the cost of doing business, and have not been motivated to come into compliance with us. And so one of their solutions is we want to create a more detailed fee schedule. Another issue is we want a more clear process. We've had an appeal for one of these, a civil penalty, and the code wasn't super clear. We ended up going through the land use hearing officer, which I feel like is the appropriate steps. And for civil processes, what most entities will do is appoint some sort of civil or independent hearing officer that will review those as part of the due process rights of the individual. And then if they disagree with whatever that authority has, they can take it to district court for more review. And so that's kind of the things that so that's what our code wants to do. I sent out a draft code earlier this week that we'll go through in more detail later. I figured today we probably want to have a lot of detail to go through it, but as you're reading through it, that was really the goal. So we're also looking at this fine schedule, essentially to help us provide some more details and to provide better tools for enforcement. So instead of just a base $100 per day, we're looking at more detailed fines for each violation. So for example, for occupancy of a non-residential structure, we do $250 per day with the max fine of $10,000 total. So essentially with that one and the construction of a structure without a building permit or zoning clearance, that's a big problem, is people will bypass the code or bypass our office to build a structure because they want to either not do a building permit or not do a roadway improvement. And for the most part, the county has not gone through the process to either evict somebody out of a structure or to force somebody to tear down a structure unless that structure was within a right-of-way. And that is a process that is very cumbersome and takes a lot of effort from our attorney's office. And so the idea is that if we just had a fine for those, that we could, that there would be some punishment, some consequence for doing it illegally to force people to come to the table. And then also with both of those, we'd want to record a notice of noncompliance, which is something we currently do, which essentially is just a note on in the recorder's office is recorded against the property that structure was either built without a building permit or it was built as an ag structure or an accessory structure and it was never approved for human occupancy. Part of that is also to protect us from liability. And so if somebody's living in an ag building and it burns down, they can't come back to the county and say, well, you let us live here. We have a detailed record that we didn't, and we told them they shouldn't live there and that it was dangerous. A couple other items that we're looking at that we've had some issues with is failure to meet CUP conditions after approval. So occasionally, not everybody follows all the conditions that we levy, or they will follow the conditions on day one of opening, but then not continue to follow them after the fact. And so we'd like to, and once again, with those commercial entities, $100 a day sometimes just isn't sufficient. Illegal extraction, so illegal mining, that's a big issue. Storage of personal junk.
What is your definition on that?
Yeah.
That seems rather ambiguous.
Our code actually goes through and defines what that is.
What junk might be, huh?
Yeah, so our code defines it as, I have to look up the definition, but it's nuisance on our vehicles that are unoperational, garbage, because there's a difference between like a farm implement sitting in the field and a pile of used tires or something like that. Because used tires actually is a big issue that we have.
Old haystack.
Yeah, so our code defines it as any scrap, copper, brass, rope, rags, batteries, paper, trash, wood, rubber, debris, waste, or junk dismantled or wrecked automobiles or parts thereof, iron, steel, or other old scrap.
Or ferrous.
Or non-ferrous material. And so we have some sections in our code that define that.
I was going to say, there's a lot of cars out there. I guess we probably don't use that one unless there's a really significant complaint and issue.
Typically.
Because if your compliance officer just drives around He's not gonna be a very well-liked guy real quick.
Yeah. And so it is important to note that this is all based off of complaint. We aren't proactive in our code enforcement for the most part, unless there is an issue that we're facing, issue mostly with like a CUP or something like that that is having an outside impact beyond the scope of what they are approved for. And then also with some of these, there's some definitions, but the code goes through in detail of when a vehicle is considered junk, when it's not, and how we proceed on that. The other thing that's important to note, even with all of these, is by code, we are required to provide an applicant time to come into compliance. And so if somebody is living in a structure that's not as a non-residential, we're required to give them time to resolve that issue before we issue a fine. Or if they have personal junk, or if they're operating a business without a business license, we're required to give them time to be able to come into compliance before we can levy a fine. And so that's kind of the base idea. We're still working on this table a little bit. I know our attorney's office had a few comments on the draft code and this that we'll be working on over the next month. So we'll come back next month to give a little bit more detailed presentation on that. The next item is short-term rentals. This is really, mostly what we want to talk about today is I want a little bit of direction on how to move forward. So generally, a short-term rental is any residential structure rented for 30 days or less. So this is typically, you think of Airbnb and VRBO or Vrbo. The county actually does allow this in some cases, like recreation facilities, transient lodging, bed and breakfast, inn, as long as they're owner-occupied, and agritourism all allows for lodging of some kind with some conditions attached to those. This is a map from AirDNA, which is a software that is designed to help short-term rental owners to have an idea of what the market's like, how many short-term rentals are in your neighborhood. But all the purple dots represent a short-term rental. And so you can see in the county that most of our short-term rentals are located within the cities, which makes sense. That's where the vast majority of homes are. But you can also see that we have quite a few that are out in unincorporated areas. And we've had, over the summer, we've had an issue with a few of them. So some of the concerns that we've faced is that under state law, the courts have ruled that unless you have a specific ordinance regulating short-term rentals, that generally speaking, they are permitted. And so we have to be proactive, you have to define them, and but once you do that, you have a broad discretion on how we regulate them. Essentially, we can we could have no regulations, you can just allow them anywhere, and they can do whatever they want for short-term rentals. And that's perfectly legal and perfectly within our options. Another option is some regulation that we could limit where, how, and how they operate. Normally require a business license. A lot of times I've seen organizations require a monthly, a yearly fire inspection, and they create some standards for having fire exits posted and those type of things to ensure that it meets fire code. Or also very common that if the home is designed for over 10 occupants, it has to be sprinkled or have some sort of water storage. And so those are things that we could look at and to require. Another option that we have is we could just prohibit them. There's nothing in the state code that requires us to allow them. So it is important to note, though, that state code does put some regulations on how we enforce and how we investigate. We can't use a posting online as sole evidence of an illegal rental. Essentially, the state legislature has ruled that's a freedom of speech issue. But you can use the posting online if it is associated with other evidence. So if we have testimonies from neighbors or of renters, if we have pictures of different license plates at the property, and you can actually, there's some dispute on this, but many municipalities and counties that have issues with short-term rentals will use reviews from these rentals as evidence that somebody stayed there as a short-term, because that's not the posting, and it's...
That's true, it's other evidence.
And it's, somebody said, we stayed here for 5 days and this was whatever, and there's evidence right there that they're using a short-term rental. And so we have a few options that are in front of us. A couple of things, this is my last slide, a couple of things to consider. Short-term rentals have some pros and cons to them. So short-term rentals allow property owners to gain the most out of their property. So if you have a property and you may be the highest and best use for you to use it, it may be a short-term rental. It also increases taxes, both in transient lodging and property. Because it's not a primary residence, it's taxed at 100% value, where a primary residence is taxed at 55% of its value. And also, state law requires that short-term rental websites remit taxes to the state that's distributed based on where that short-term rental is located. And so the county will receive will receive taxes from those. Another thing to consider is they do compete with local hotels and motels. There's also impact in neighborhoods. This is often seasonal, with summer getting more impact and winters getting less in the county. There's also health and safety concerns. So homes have not been inspected for these type of lodgings. Home may not meet fire or building code. And another concern, and one that I particularly have in the county, is use creep. Essentially, somebody has a 10-acre lot and they do a short-term rental. Before you know it, you're doing weddings, you're doing parties, you're doing all sorts of stuff on it that might be beyond the normal scope of a short-term rental, which that's actually one of the issues that we had this summer, is we had a short-term rental that was on a big piece of property, and they started renting it out as a short-term rental and a venue. And the venue was clear within our code that they couldn't do, and so that's what we enforced on. But I would imagine that will potentially be an issue in the county as we consider the use of short-term rentals is essentially this kind of creeping use. So really what I'm looking for today is mostly like, I've worked a lot on short-term rental ordinances. That was a huge problem in my previous job. And so I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how to move forward with whatever regulations the county would like to impose. But I would like some ideas before I bring back some recommendations from this body.
If I may, the fortunate thing or the unfortunate thing of being a council member is your phone number's published, so I get a lot of calls. Ours too. In Wellsville, the subdivision that you guys denied last week, this gentleman took a 4-lot subdivision and clustered it. And one of them is kind of like a barndominium. People don't live there. Father died, so they've turned it into a short-term rental, which is impacting those citizens immensely. Thursday through Sunday, they have documented as much as 40 people staying in this place, coming in on little roads that are only meant for 3 houses, parking. I've gone to 2 citizens. One citizen got up in the morning and one of the people at the other house was over in his shed looking for power to hook up and everything else. And he says, well, the other homeowner said I could use it. This is a home that's in a residential area that is being used for commercial.
He was at our last meeting, he spoke. That was
Yep.
one of the neighbors.
Yep, and very upset about it. And I understand it because they did weddings. A home is one domestic use, so how much water is being used from Thursday through Sunday, plus what's the septic tank condition, a lot of those things. And so these citizens are just being impacted like crazy with traffic, with people, with privacy, and the county has no recourse right now. So we got to come up, and all I'm saying is think if that was done in a house next to you. So we need to understand what goes on there because this has really impacted those guys. I mean, they've sent me pictures, weddings, everything else, and they've really impacted the neighborhood.
I guess I'd give a counter viewpoint because I'm counter to a lot of things. I look at this, I look at the picture, and thank you for this graphic. I think that's really good. I look at it in the vast majority of the county, we don't have anything. I mean, they're just very, very few. I was quite surprised in the unincorporated county just how few short-term rentals there are. And I know we have some problem situations there. We just lost as a county a major event in the Small Satellite Conference, And the major reason that that left was because of lack of lodging. They, in talking with people in years past that were coming there, they were commuting from Ogden and beyond because that's where they could get a hotel room to come up
at a reasonable price.
Or even get one. Everything was booked in this area.
Even during the fair, some of them, they had to get some lodging over in Box Elder this year, Margaret was saying, or no?
Well, no, what we did for the county fair is we went to our Airbnbs, because during the small satellite,
They had everything else.
Motel 6 raised
Oh, yeah.
it to $500
$500 per night.
Wow. They know how to make the money.
And so I look at that, I mean, that's one of the major conferences that brings people from all over the world that we lost in this community. The dollars that brings in.
$6 million, they said.
$6 million to the community because of lack of lodging. And I think this body here doesn't want to, we don't want to see hotels stacked up, and that's probably not a reasonable way to deal with the type of events that we have would be with hotel rooms. Whereas I think short-term rentals, and we could pull everybody in the room and say, you ever stayed at an Airbnb? And I think most of us have, and have found few challenges with those things, and they've been safe and places that would be reasonable to go and stay. However, it comes down to that, not in my backyard, is the concern. I know there are some challenges with it, but I think we need to be cognizant of the impact that regulation can have on something like that, on $6 million in the community from a simple conference. The other side of it is, if there's a farmer, I always come back to, if we want open space, if we want an ag environment around us, you better let the farmers make some money some way. And if they've got a house on their property that they can turn into a short-term rental, and provide people a farm experience out there, and supplement their farm income, well, chances are that that ag property stays open space improves. So that's one concern when I hear that we're considering, one of the options on the table is just banning those, and I get that. Down in Washington County, you've got places like Springdale that if they allowed short-term rentals without a lot of regulation, nobody would live in that town, because you can get $1,000 a night for houses next to Zion National Park. So I get that. But I think we need to be careful about the regulation on this, because I think it's a valuable economic benefit to our community, and something that is needed, particularly at high points during the year when we have big events that come into the valley.
And I agree with you, but the number is the impact. Most of those residents around there say, if these people want to rent their house, great. But 45 people.
Agreed.
That's the party thing, right?
Agreed.
That's the impact that we're bringing in the residents. And so I'm not saying we take them away, but we get some force so that the citizens who are being impacted, we can help them. And then the other part is we're sitting here as a council saying, okay, where does a commercial and a residential thing stop and start? Does that make sense? I mean, we're not saying we want Motel 6 dotted out throughout the county, because then we're competing against Marriott and the others who are doing a viable commercial site. So there's the balance. I mean, and having that there.
I agree with that. I think those are limits we need to look at. But when I look, I mean, we bring up things like, well, safety and having fire inspections and those things, and that's the world I live in. I get that, managing risk. However, I think if we're looking at regulating because of that, we better be looking at anybody who's renting a house for long-term rentals. right? I think I don't see significantly different, significant differences in those from one person renting a house versus renting that for a night.
I guess my question would be, are there some places that have a good balanced approach that have kind of hit somewhere that preserves people's rights, but also preserves their rights too?
Yeah, my property rights don't come at the expense of somebody else's property rights, and that's what's
I don't know,
happening.
have you seen some places that work?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different options out there, and it kind of depends a little bit on the community. A lot of organizations will put some sort of cap on how many permits they'll issue per the population or per the number of housing units within a zone. So you say you get one license out for every 100 units or something that have been built. That way there's some sort of cap, and then you normally put some sort of restrictions on spacing between them too, so you don't have a row of short-term rentals. Another way to do it is, I don't think this would be a good option necessarily for the county, but a lot of other jurisdictions will create a zone that's specifically just oriented towards short-term rentals. And so any home in that zone could be a short-term rental, or it could be long-term, or it could be under long-term habitation. And so then you normally design the infrastructure and other needs of that community around that short-term rental policy. You can also do, like, if you allow it straight open, you can also just put requirements on it. It might need a conditional use permit, or a business license, require some sort of inspection, or you can also look at only allow it off certain sized roadways or public roadways, so that way they're not impeding on private roadways or other undersized infrastructure. So there's a lot of different directions that we could go with this, which is partly why I want to have this conversation before I started working on the policy.
Numbers are interesting, because I could have a family reunion and have 45 people at my house and my yard. But having it Thursday through Sunday all through the summer every weekend is the impact. And
Well,
so,
and when you're having the family reunion, you have a little more respect for your neighbors than.
right, then
party
those
you're
who are on
leaving
the,
Monday morning.
yeah, those who leave or being paid, and they're like stack them
I
and
think
rack them.
the venue type thing or size thing is one thing that would be good. to
Yeah, that's
look
the
at in
impact
there.
to those people who are around there. I mean,
If it's
cars.
If it fits 4 people and there's 1 car there, right, it's probably not the party that is causing the problems. But there are a lot of variances variations you could have in there.
I don't know that it specifically said this in the presentation, but, Jason touched on it, which is this idea that short-term rentals also, take away from the housing stock, rental housing, more long-term sort of things too. So that's definitely an issue as well.
It is an issue. It's brought out in the legislative, is that what we started as ADUs has turned into a short-term rental thing.
That's what I was gonna bring up.
There's a number of.
UAC is bringing that up.
Short-term rentals in ADUs.
Did they get some?
Because of that reason.
Did they get their study done?
The last one I heard, they said yes, something 53%. Jason's got a comment.
Jason's got some comments.
When Jason was talking about the long-term versus the short-term stuff, in the fire code, there's different sections of building type of construction and whatnot. Well, there's R1, R2, R3, and R4 residentials. So an R1 is transient, so it comes in, they come in, it's like going to a hotel, in and out, in and out, in and out. R3 is a residential home that we all have. We live in a house, okay? So as far as what you said about renting versus an Airbnb, a renter was going to be an R3, because that renter is going to come in, and that renter is going to stay in that house for 6 months, a year, 2 years. And so we don't consider that transient just for the fact that they know how to get in their house, they know how to get out of their house, they're familiar with the place. The R1s are transient, and so if you're staying one night and you're in the middle of the night, you have to get up, the lights are off, power's out, and you're trying to figure out how to get out of that house, you may have a little bit of trouble. That's why my suggestion is we would have a business license where we would go into those and inspect them.
Short-term rental to an R1 standard, because none would be able to meet that.
Right, well, I would personally. I mean, I know the state, the fire marshal's office are there like R3s, but, so it's kind of up to us to create that ordinance. I know I contract with Nibley City to do inspections, and Nibley City requires a business license for short-term, and they require an inspection before they'll let them.
So are they requiring exit signs and?
Yep, they require, you know, it's really basic stuff. We're not going to come in and say you got to sprinkle the place. It's just, I mean, that's just one of those things. It's an R3. I mean, it's an R3, but it's an R1. But fire extinguishers, they got to have fire extinguishers. They got to have egress. All the doors have got to work properly. They've got to have smoke detectors that work properly, carbon monoxide detectors that work properly. So just the basic stuff. But on the other hand, it's covering the county.
Yeah.
You know, the liability of it. I mean, I live in a liability world, and if we can do something to limit the liability to us, then I'm all for it. And that way we can collect taxes on a business license, fees. I mean, right now I look at it, and this is kind of my own opinion. I look at all the ones that are out in the county, and there's a lot more than you think, believe me.
Yeah.
There is. There's a whole bunch out there. But those people come in, they use our roads, they use, you know, our stuff, but where's the taxes going? Are they getting, you know, is the taxes coming back to us, or is it just kind of a free, come to Cache Valley, you know? So, I don't know. But anyway, as far as that's my opinion on, you know, business licenses and actually doing an inspection. It is more work, but it's well worth it.
Actually, in the other organization I work for, one of our biggest concerns we always found was people putting bunk beds in like storage rooms that didn't have any windows or
Yeah,
egress.
the egress thing is, I would be very concerned about. So this idea of, I love these ideas, like a business license and inspection.
Yeah, I think those give you, because then someone's looking at them, right? They're still.
Compliance.
And not only does that help us, we know that is an Airbnb or whatever.
Yeah.
So we know
You know when you get a call, you know what you're going into.
Right. I know.
It's on your chart.
Right now, we don't.
And then a size something, and then probably something with parking, so that we know that there's adequate parking and road access. They're not going down a little lane and putting 50 cars at a home that they can't get out of if there is something.
Right, and that's where we can put that ordinance in for the amount of people that can stay at one of these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That way we can.
Yeah, I think
help
those.
the neighbors.
So we're kind of middle of the road from allowing them and banning them, but I agree with Jason. When I go on vacation, that's my first look, is I'm gonna stay in an Airbnb if I can. I'd rather be out away from town a little bit.
I've never been the one that's had an exit sign.
I think that one I might have stayed at in Montana last month might have actually had one, but it was the only one that ever has. And I didn't need it because it was one room. There's only one door. There's no bedrooms. There's no walls. It was a door.
And I would just counter the liability argument. When we put regulation on it, then we encounter the liability, right?
Yeah, and I see both sides of
With
that.
the lack of, you know, that's the, when we do something and we say this is what you have to do, then the liability comes on us more so than something that we don't know about that's happening out in the county.
Mr. Chairman, I'm mindful of our time, so our meeting's over unless somebody wants to extend it.
Let's rush that direction.
I'm all right with it being over if everyone else is, but.
We're short on the noticing presentation.
Yeah, which.
We can do that next month?
So it's a good one we need to talk about, but I think it's pretty short, but yeah, we'll do it next month. How is next month looking other than that?
I think 2 CUPs and a rezone. So, nothing too crazy.
Is the solar rezone coming back yet?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Excellent.
How about Smithfield Canyon gravel pit?
That should be back on the agenda.
Really?
They haven't come yet, but their time's running out.
Their office contacted me today, actually, and said they were about ready to submit some updated information, so.
Yeah, 'cause their time's
I
running
know they're
out.
working on it.
You need panels on the storage sheds out there.
Did
Hey, one thing, back to your fines. You talked about scope. Years ago, those of us who sat on the planning and zoning, we dealt with Whisper Ridge and their bikes and everything else. So the scope of that thing is huge, because I don't know how many people they could have there on bikes. So 250 versus somebody who's not done something else. I just would like to see scope based on, I don't know, if you put it a percentage of sales or the percentage of people. Just seems that there ought to be a scale to that bike, just as much as we're talking about this gravel pit in Smithfield Canyon too.
Okay, yeah.
Because somebody that has some junk in their yard, $100 may be, that's on a fixed income, $100 may be a major imposition to them, but a business like that.
Yeah, we couldn't do anything but
Cost of
Whisper
doing
Ridge.
business,
They're
right?
just waiting for that junk to become worth a lot of money so they can sell it, so they have something.
They're watching the steel price go
Yeah.
up.
They've been saving that
holding on
junk
to
for a
that
long
one more
time to get
year.
$100 out of it, so.
Hey, anyhow, thanks to you guys for being on the planning commission. You guys are well respected, and hope you know we take what you say to very deep consideration on the council. So you guys have a lot of experience, and we try to value that, so thank you.
With no objections, then we'll adjourn until next month.